And good evening. My name is Donnie Glover. Welcome to a special edition of BlackUSA.News. We're being joined by attorney Roya Hanna. Good evening, Roya. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you, Donnie?
So much going on in the city of Baltimore. Just yesterday, as we were speaking before going live, was the filing deadline. Campaign finance report that went in for candidates running in this year's election. You're running in this year's election?
I am. I'm running for Baltimore City State's Attorney because we need to change the city.
And this is not your first time on our show.
It is not. You had me on one of my first long interviews was on your show. I think the first one, actually.
Well, today's an interesting day as it relates to that campaign for Baltimore City State's Attorney. According to Channel 11, Baltimore prosecutor Marilyn Mosby federally indicted on perjury, false mortgage application charges related to COVID-19, financial hardship withdrawal, false statement on loan application.
Yeah. Honestly, we had heard rumors about the mortgage stuff and taxes or whatever else for the past 6 months or so. But this COVID stuff is really disturbing to me. That is what kind of shocked me about all of this. So many of Baltimore citizens went through so much when everything shut down, trying to find different ways of doing their job, being unemployed, all of those sorts of things. And there's this elected official who's very well paid taking advantage of it or allegedly taking advantage of it. And I hope to God it's not true, but the feds are pretty careful before they bring an indictment. And I just can't believe that somebody would take advantage of our city and this system and this horrible pandemic in the way that it happened.
But here we are.
But here we are.
You decided to run how long ago?
I don't know when I exactly decided to run. I had taken a class on running for office because I was toying with the idea years ago. I think the more I saw in this city of people dying and no one being willing to step up and do what needs to be done and make our city safer and just get the job done. Everyone's so much more interested in playing politics and all of those sorts of things than in just making us safe. That's all I want. I just wanted her to do her job, for other politicians to do their job, and put our city first.
Now, this is her second term?
It is.
It makes me think how maybe politicians stay too long.
Maybe.
That period between, when people, right now, you're altruistic, you have good intentions, positive mindset. But 2 years into the job, 3 years into the job, dealing with the Sun and now the Baltimore Banner, or soon to be the Baltimore Banner, and Fox, and all of these news and anything that you may have in your personal life becomes fair game, and your life is out there. Maybe after 3 or 4 years, that's enough for anybody, just from a mental health standpoint.
That's entirely possible, but I think there is a difference between being burnt out by everything and then taking active steps towards defrauding people. There is a huge difference between just being frustrated and saying, I'm tired of being in politics, I can't take it, and actively choosing to lie on forms to just get a little bit of extra money, or actively choosing to lie on mortgage documents or whatever. There, uh, the last police commissioner, it was a crime of omission. He didn't file his taxes appropriately or whatever, and the government dinged him for that. That is not this case. This case is alleged to be an affirmative step, and that is the difference. Um, so I understand what you're saying. Like, I'm sure it is a tough job, and it's been tough for her to do. And I don't envy the situation that she's found herself in so many times, but this I don't think is related to that. You can feel sorry, if you think she's being targeted or whatever, but there is a very big difference between people being negative on Twitter versus allegations that she has actively done something to defraud the system.
We're just joined by attorney Robert Fulton DeShiel. Mr. DeShiel, I have read the headline thus far. I'll go a little bit deeper into it. Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, according to WBAL TV 11, has been indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of perjury related to a COVID-19 financial hardship withdrawal and a false statement on a loan application. A federal grand jury returned the indictment Thursday, charging Mosby on federal charges of perjury and making false mortgage applications relating to the purchases of 2 vacation homes in Florida. Sad news in the city of Baltimore.
I agree.
Before you came on, Roya had pointed out how, at least the COVID charges, this is relatively new.
Well, I I'm amazed at how many people have already convicted her. I mean, I haven't heard except in passing anybody suggest that she's entitled to a trial. Anybody to speculate that there might be an explanation different than the one that the government has offered. I'm flabbergasted. For example, for what I understand, the CARES Act violations, that was her money. That was money from her retirement account. If she made, the question is, did she say or do something that allowed her to get it sooner than what she was supposed to legally be able to get it? But it wasn't federal money. It wasn't taxpayer money. That was her money. Ordinarily, you would think if you withdraw from a retirement account too early, or if you withdraw it and don't pay it back on time, there's a penalty, a significant penalty. In some cases, 100%. So it turns out not to be all that big of a deal. I don't know what the story is here. I don't know whether telling the bank about a $45,000 tax lien that may have been paid off the day after the application was filled out, for example, would have made any difference at all from an underwriting point of view. So even if it was intentionally withheld, I don't know who the victim would be, if it wouldn't have made any difference to the bank anyhow, because they knew or had reason to believe that it had already been paid or that it would be paid shortly. You see, the point I'm trying to make is everybody's promoting this as though it's a fait accompli, as though the facts are so self-evident. And frankly, that's just not true.
But it certainly is an attack on her political career, as this is an election year. Or do you think it's actually something that will have an adverse effect? Kind of like the Billy the Kid, Jesse James syndrome, where the people protect, like a Robert Wallace, the people then protect her.
Well, the thing is, the state's attorney is not an office of political leadership. That's not the position of a leader. That's not where I go to find somebody who's going to guide me to a place where I want to go. A state's attorney is a prosecutor. They shouldn't have friends. They got but one job: to prosecute. That's all they do. That's all. It's like the Terminator. He doesn't talk. He doesn't smile at babies. He just terminates. That's all prosecutors do. So I'm not concerned about how this affects her political career. Prosecutors don't have political careers, in my judgment.
How does that pan out on the streets of Baltimore, Roy? What are people saying in the places that you go?
Well, I mean, obviously, I haven't talked to that many people about this incident since it just came out this afternoon. You know, I think how things have played out on the streets and who I've talked to in the neighborhoods, everyone just wanted the job to get done. They just wanted to feel safe in Baltimore. Like Robert was saying, prosecutors supposed to prosecute, and that hasn't been happening for a variety of reasons, not related to whatever's going on with the feds or this case or the indictment or whatever else. You know, our campaign has been highlighting that story of Luther Trent, who was a man who sent threatening text messages to his ex-girlfriend for 3 months and then tried to burn her and her roommates alive in the middle of the night. And the state's attorney's office there gave him probation after he had only been incarcerated for 5 years or for 5 months. Like, probation for trying to kill 3 people and burn them alive? You know, that's people are more concerned about things like that than they are with whatever's happening with Miss Mosby and her financial records. That is what disturbs people. That's what upsets people. That we do not have a system that actually holds people accountable. You know, even Luther Trent went on television a few days ago and said, this plea was too weak. Yeah, it makes me think that I can go out and blow somebody's head off and get away with it. That is the defendant saying that. So, you know, I think that is what we have to keep focusing on. I think that's what our campaign is going to keep focusing on. Ms. Mosby's going to do what she's going to do. I don't think that that somebody who's supposed to be the chief law enforcement officer of the city, who's supposed to have the highest amount of integrity, who goes and signs applications to get wiretaps, applications to have people put in jail. I don't think that a person who has credibility issues and has perjury charges and all of those different things really should be doing those sorts of things. We wouldn't allow a police officer who was under indictment for perjury to arrest anybody, and yet we're going to continue to allow Miss Mosby to continue to sign every single indictment in the city and to get wiretaps and charge people with crimes. We wouldn't allow that if it was anybody else. So I just, you know, I understand that she has not been convicted, and I'm not trying to convict her, and I have not seen anything that the feds have. But if the shoe were on the other foot and this was a police officer, somebody like that, we would be demanding accountability and demanding that they at least step back and allow somebody else to make the really big decisions at this critical point in time.
Mr. DeShiel, has Ms. Mosby been distracted? I mean, when she came in, the job was on the heels of Freddie Gray. Freddie Gray kind of took on a life and form of its own. It put her into the national starlight. Could that have distracted her from the primary goal of prosecuting criminals?
Well, you know, I'm not a member of the criminal defense bar, but I do have some understanding of the process. Somebody makes a bunch of decisions before the quote criminal reaches the state's attorney's office in most instances. In other words, the state's attorneys don't arrest people off the street. Okay. State's attorneys don't go out and gather the evidence that would be necessary to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the arrested person actually committed the crime. The state's attorneys help guide those things. They help provide some instruction on what is not admissible evidence, I assume. But you have to understand, finding somebody guilty is more than a hunch. It's more than a feeling. It's proof beyond a reasonable doubt into a moral certainty, because you're taking somebody's freedom. So the fact that in, I guess, the bulk of cases that are brought at all levels of prosecution are probably settled out, or I guess you call it pled out or whatever. Federal, state, local, across the country, not just Baltimore City, Baltimore County, every place else. The majority of them end exactly that way. Not because people feel that the person is innocent or feel that because there's a legal standard that has to be met. And the question is, can you convince 12 people whose verdict in most cases, in most states, not Mississippi and others, whose vote has to be unanimous? That's a heavy burden. And beyond that, Donnie, in the case, and it's in the final now, and then finally, it's the judge who has to accept it.
Okay, but
the sentence is set by the judge, not by the state's attorney.
Okay. That is not true. I'm sorry to correct you on that. Baltimore City has been very careful about only imposing decisions that are offered by the state's attorney. The state's attorney makes the offer.
Either you didn't hear what I said, or you're deliberately not responding to what I said. I said the sentence is imposed by the judge. I didn't say the judge didn't follow the state's attorney's recommendation. I said, but no judge is bound by it. The judge makes the final decision, not the state's attorney. Now, if I'm wrong, somebody from the criminal bar can correct me.
No, the judge does make the final decision, but the judge in this particular case made the decision based on the representations of the state's attorney. What the state's attorney said, oh, we don't know that we can prove the case. And what actually happened, if you talk to the victims in this case, and let me just tell you about the victims in this case.
What case are we talking about?
The Luther Trent case, the one that I was talking about earlier, that she, that after trying to burn her and her two roommates alive, they only got 5 months.
This is the case that's been reported over the past couple of days.
And the one where we believe the convicted felon when he said he wished he was still in jail.
That's the one.
we think he was serious when he said that. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I know what case you're talking about now.
Right.
I have never heard anybody say that.
In those cases, the victims are these two amazing women who are college graduates. They're both in graduate schools at HBCUs. They are just amazingly powerful people. And for them to be given the short shrift of, oh, we don't care what you have to say about the state's attorney. They called them up and said, this is what we're doing. And they said, no, I object. This is awful. I feel like my life is not being valued. And the state's attorney said, we don't care. We're going to do it anyway. And, you know, when the victim in this particular case said that she had been raped, the state's attorney said, oh, well, did you get a rape kit? No. Okay. We're not going to do anything about that either. We're not even going to be bothered to investigate. That is what I'm talking about. When victims like that woman who's she's going to be one of our future leaders. I just know it. And she is so amazing and so powerful, is treated like she doesn't matter at all. Like her life isn't important. That is what upsets me about this office and about pleas like that. That not, oh, well, we can't believe the defendant. I don't care about believing the defendant. I care about standing up for that woman and for women like her who know that they are being mistreated. And nothing is going to make it right if we do not have leadership in that office that treats these cases seriously and treats these women's concerns and fears seriously.
Is Baltimore safer today?
Right now? No.
Than 7 or 8 years ago?
Absolutely not. 7 or 8 years ago, there was a homicide rate of about 200. Last year, I think we had 337. We've had over 300 each and every year that Ms. Mosby has been in charge. Absolutely not.
Right now, Mr. DeShield, we have a police situation where they're not arresting low-level crimes. They're not arresting for anything petty because the police believe that that the state's attorney won't prosecute. So consequently, the people in the community are left to live around such brazen, sometimes Amsterdam behavior in referencing The Wire, open air drug markets, let alone the shootings and the murders. But the mayor, the police commissioner, the state's attorney See, the people just want to be safe to go to the store, but it doesn't seem there's any synergy among the three of them.
Well, I don't know about the synergy between the three of them, but I can tell you that the proclamation that of not prosecuting so-called low-level crimes was a wrong decision. Not, I mean, it just makes no sense at all, because the safety of the people that you're talking about, Donnie, isn't a function of the 300 murders. It's a function of, can I get to my car and to my house? Can I walk from the corner store back and forth without getting mugged or robbed? That's the kind of safety issues that people face on a day-to-day basis. They're not worried about being one of the 300 out of 500,000 that happen to get shot and killed. That's 300 out of 500,000 people. I'm much more likely to get robbed walking from my car than I am to get shot and be included in that number. Okay. So when she says, I'm not going to prosecute low-level crimes, I mean, I was appalled by it. It sends the absolute wrong signal. Not so much to the people who are going to do what they're going to do. They're going to do it whether she says she's going to prosecute it or not, because prosecution is not something they fear. What the signal that it says to certain communities is, I don't think you deserve the same level of protection as other communities. That's the message that's wrong.
Roy, I've called the police. We have a new influx here in Sandtown of addicts who don't look like the majority population here, who come from elsewhere. They break into vacants, cause fires, they steal, but the police won't do anything. The state's attorney won't prosecute. And so living in Sandtown, I feel like these vagrants have more power, more protection than do I, a taxpaying citizen, a homeowner.
But Donnie, that's what we're seeing all over the place, right? Everyone seems more concerned about protecting the interests of those who are not doing the right thing.
People. I really am. I help out where I can. I try to do all I can.
And that's what I love about Baltimore. There are so many people in this city who are striving so hard, who work every single day to make our city better. And yet we just tolerate things that we shouldn't have to put up with people doing all sorts of crimes. And, oftentimes it is the little things that affect people. It's the fact that you keep having to pay a $500 deductible because somebody breaks the window out of your car. And you do that a couple times a year. And yeah, that makes a dent, right? I mean, and it's all of this sort of stuff combined. Nobody wants to see everyone locked up for some petty crimes, but they do want it to stop. And they want people to be held accountable in ways that make it stop. So that's why I have my solution of community service. And unfortunately, Donnie, I've loved being with you, and Robert, I've loved talking with you too. I have to jump off in a sec, but I do really appreciate
we're winding down.
I'm sorry.
I got you. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much.
See you, Roy.
Thank you.
But Mr. DeShield, my concern is for the rest of us, the city of Baltimore. I mean, this is an election year. The mayor, I'm not sure where he stands in all of this. All I know is Baltimore is not a very safe place. We've had weekly shootouts at the Avenue Market in broad daylight. This is not a safe place, and vagrants have more rights than do I.
Well,
this isn't what I signed up for. And I got to say this, Mr. DeShield, the non-Black community and whomever in the Black community, they need to forgive Sheila Dixon. Twice she put herself up there, withstood the jabs, the darts, and both times we see that she would have been the better choice. And I'm not stuck on the past.
Right.
I'm just trying to figure out how to move forward.
Well, hold on. Let me plug my computer before I lose my power. Johnny, as I've said many times, police don't stop crime. Communities do. The people do. And I've also said that there are some people out in the community who are so incorrigible that they're simply incorrigible. They will not be part of the remnant. The problem is, if in order for the community to do its job, which is to assist police in making the community, that's the community's job. The community's job is to help the police their community. That's an obligation. But in order for them to perform that obligation, they have to trust the police.
Yeah, the police can't be getting paid off by the dope man to turn his head.
Right. And the police, and it helps when you know the police. They're more than just they look like you, but you remember, oh yeah, you Miss Johnny's boy. I used to walk you to the corner. Oh yeah, you Miss Mabel. Miss Mabel, you live around the corner. When we see Miss Mabel's boy and Miss Johnny's boy wearing a uniform and wearing it proudly, I know, shoot, I trust him because his mama live right around the corner. Let me catch him doing something. That kind of community we used to have, Donnie, among ourselves.
And you add to this today, and we only need a couple more minutes, but now because of COVID, there's another barrier.
Yeah.
In between the communication. So, I know you're a man of faith. I believe we need some prayer, some serious prayer, some nights of prayer, some weeks of prayer and fasting. That's all I can tell. We get a lot of fathers in these institutions that need to be reconnected with their children. So much fatherlessness in the community. The preacher. I'm grateful for PM Smith because we've seen him on the corner of Pennsylvania Avenue, but we don't see the preachers. We don't see the church. We don't see Jesus in the streets. We see Jesus moving beyond the Beltway, baby.
Yeah, Donnie.
And it's an election year. Oh, by the way, congratulations to Team Moore. I hear y'all raised $4 million.
Close to 5.
5.
Close to 5.
That's unprecedented.
Did pretty well.
No, that was extraordinary.
Doubled what Perez did almost. So
phenomenal. And to know that it's a black man, you must be proud.
I'm happy. I'm happy for us. Because it's not an I, it's about we. And I believe in West because he believes in that. But let me address. You said something about COVID and
another barrier, the mask in between community policing.
Well, the problem, of course, is that the mask is the most effective tool we have against transmission. As you've heard,
I totally get that.
Yeah. So but it is not being able to communicate the way we used to communicate and the way the communication comes natural to us is a problem. It's a terrible. That's why it impacts our children more than others, and it impacts our lives more than others. Yes.
See, before we knew them, so they got the mask on, but now if it's a new person, it's really no help. And then there's shortages of people in all positions, not just police. There's shortages across the board, even the Internal Revenue.
I just got why you brought up the thing about the mask because of my comment about the police. I'm sorry, but but even with the mask on, I still can tell Miss Mabel's boy. I know the shape of his head. I know his voice. I know how he walk. So you can put the mask on, but I'm still gonna know you.
Okay, what I'm getting to, that's you. We know each other. I know your walk. I can see you a block away. But I'm talking about when these cops come in from York, Pennsylvania,
That's the problem. That's the problem. We don't recognize them. We know they're not from the community. We know they know they're just passing through, making time until 5 o'clock or 4, whatever time this shift ends, and we're not going to see them again till tomorrow morning, if then. That's in order for public safety to be achieved. The level of trust running between the police and the community has to be uncontaminated. It has to be almost pure. It has to, because neither can effectively create a community that's safe without the other. We can't put enough police on the street to stop crime. That's 500,000 people. How many of them are we gonna make cops? We and the community not gonna go run into a cop today because they saw him yesterday in the alley. You see, so anyway,
Thank you for joining us this evening, Mr. Shield. And we got a 7 o'clock show coming up, Black Business Roundtable live from Oakland. Good evening, everyone. Thank you.